Hello and welcome. My name is Kyle, and this is How You Level Up, a podcast that decodes language to help you become your best self.
So this is a funny prank we did, or not we did, but David did. So like we get into this bookstore. It's like the most classic, like hippie liberal bookstore. And every, book you can think of, like White Fragility by Robin.
It's so funny. That's so funny.
And then I go to David. I go, what would you do if I ask the guy who works here, who's also this like liberal guy, like if he has a book by Trump, one of Trump's books. and David goes, yeah, I'll give you $5 if you do that. And I was like, nah, I don't really want to do that. And then he goes, will you give me $5? And I said, yes. And he goes up to the guy, he goes, hey, do you have The Art of the Deal by Donald J. Trump?
He said the full name too, such an asshole.
What did the guy say?
The guy like looks at his computer, like he gave like a quick smile because he's never heard that request ever. But he looks on his computer and he goes, yep, nope, but you can order it if you want. And
he has to say it too. He has to say it. That's the best part.
Yeah, that was pretty funny,
dude. That's so funny you're saying that, because like I purposely go into the bookstores here. Every bookstore in Brooklyn, except for McNally Jackson, I guess they're a little better, but they all are like, like
yeah, the most
of cat people, like 101. It's so.
How did bookstores end up like that? I don't understand.
It's the people that work and run.
I guess, yeah. The type of person who's attracted to work or own a bookstore.
But there's a guy that works at the bookstore right here down the street from me, and he's like a normal. They just hired him, so he's like a little less, I guess, ideologically inclined or whatever. And I go in there every single time on purpose. I'm really going to McNally Jackson, but I just go in there and I ask him for like, do you have books? Do you have like Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell? He always starts smiling. I'll be like, do you have like, I'll just always like the craziest books. And he's like, we definitely don't have that.
Yeah.
Dougie, I got a business idea.
The Heretic
books.
That would be great.
Heretic bookstore.
This branding that you came up with, it's great.
Yeah. I think it's a really cool. I just have to figure out how to like keep it fresh, like keep the articles fresh. But that's like the only challenge, and I already kind of have some ideas to fix that. But yeah, I think it's a good brand, and like I could totally see this being. Actually, the reason why I started this was I got into an argument about climate change with David, and he just had zero he had never heard the challenges to climate change before. Like he had never heard the opposite views. And I don't mean like people denying climate change. I just mean like people who are a little bit more practical about it. And like, we can't just get to green energy, like, or sustainable energy, like right away. So like we have this back and forth because Trump's energy director is a fracking guy, is a fracking CEO. And we were talking about that. And basically like I sent him this article. He's an MIT engineer. He's a brilliant guy. But his whole thesis is that, yes, climate change is happening, but it's not a crisis. Like everyone shouldn't just stop what they're doing, stop eating steak or turn off our air conditionings. We should just produce more energy. Like we should just increase production on all forms of energy. And I just realized like David has a very like scientific consensus view on climate change, just because he's never been exposed to anything that challenges that. And like, if there's one thing that we learned from COVID, it's like you should challenge consensus science, right? Like, for the most part. I mean, you shouldn't just accept that, okay, this is the consensus, we all agree with that, right? Because scientists were so wrong about like so many different things during COVID. It's like they're obviously wrong about other things, and they've been wrong about nutrition in the past. And so it's like so that's kind of like what made me start Heretic News.
It's a great idea, man.
So a couple of things. First, is it heretic or heretic?
Great question. How do you pronounce that? I thought it was heretic. No.
I'm not positive either.
I now that I think about it, I've never. Yeah, where I got that name, you guys know Peter Thiel owns a venture fund called Founders Fund, venture capital, and Peter Thiel is like the ultimate like contrarian, and he only hires contrarians, and so he hires these guys who just like, they're super smart, obviously, but they're just against mainstream consensus. And they throw a conference every year called HereticCon, and where they just have these conferences, these talks. And each talk is something very controversial, something like taboo.
Love that.
Yeah, I wanted to go. The tickets are kind of a lot of money. I might go. I'm probably going to try to go next year, but it's in Miami every year, and that's where I was like got the name from.
All right, let me see it.
Heretic.
That'd be really interesting.
Did you hear that?
What?
Heretic.
I don't hear.
Oh, heretic.
Heretic. Heretic news. Okay.
I think it's great. I think your easiest way to kick off, and this is just my thought, is just find people. I mean, people in my view are like, I don't know how to explain this necessarily, but they're very fractal. Like, they're not like, if someone is genuine, like a genuine reporter, they're not bound by an ideological view, and they can switch their opinions. And a human being has that capability more than like, I don't know, like MSNBC or Fox even, or like these channels, they're bound by an ideological view, whereas like an independent journalist really, who is just curious and being genuine, will push back on consensus. So I think that your best option is to find, just like, maybe you pick different fields and you start picking people who post things that are against the mainstream or against like narratives. And sometimes maybe they'll have confluence with what's being said in the mainstream, but ultimately they're just more skeptical of power. That's really what all of this is. Like, even the real problem with the climate change debate isn't necessarily that climate change is happening. It's that we should give up a tremendous amount of power to government agencies in order to fix a problem when they're notoriously terrible at solving problems. Like, and especially for something as non-specific as the climate, like all of a sudden it's in every facet of your life, which is, we're going to change what you eat. We're going to change how far you can drive. We're going to change what you can wear, like the clothing that's being produced with oil and it's being pushed by people who, like, there's a couple books by this guy Václav Smil, who Bill Gates is a huge fan of, that's why it's almost like scary that he has some of the views he has, because this guy argues in his books like, hey, we can't just change over to green energy on a dime. Like, our entire infrastructure is built around fossil fuels,
Yeah.
And that's the argument. Is just, and it was the same thing with COVID. It wasn't necessarily that people were saying like, don't get vaccinated, don't do all these things. There was a contingency of people doing that, but ultimately it was just like, hey, maybe this isn't the 100% truth, and I don't need to follow this like it's a religious cult. And I'm a heretic now for
And that's the problem with mandates, right? Where it's like, okay, you can have these opinions, or not opinions, but like you can have these views on
I'd call them opinions.
vaccines, whatever. But once you start mandating it, like forcing people to actually abide by your set of views, that's where it becomes like really your freedoms start getting infringed upon, and people lost their jobs, as we know. People couldn't get into bars or restaurants without a vaccine passport. Like it got crazy, and schools were shut down for years, right? Which was horrible looking backwards. But yeah, it's
I think,
part of me just think,
if I could, I think
one
that
last thought.
yeah, please.
Okay, one last thought is like, seems like it's authoritarian in nature, right? Like the common thing that climate change or COVID all has, it's just people who want more control over your lives. And like, I think that's what it comes down to. Could be wrong, right? Maybe they really do care about the earth warming or these issues, but it just seems like it's about power and control.
Yeah, so I think that it could be about power and control in some facet of like what their drive is, what their plan is. I think part of it, though, is just simply the outsourcing of research. The outsourcing of knowledge is that we trust a small select group of people, and all of these people believe and think in the same way. And I mean, I was talking to somebody last night, went out to a birthday party in the city, and the person I was speaking to, I had shared a podcast episode with them. And the moment that I shared it and they saw that it was somebody on Joe Rogan, it was like the mental block came up that was, I don't have time to listen to something that Joe Rogan has on his podcast. And I'm like, but why not? Right? Like that's where you're going to have dissenting views. So just to loop it back to this idea of heretic news, like I think it's very valuable, and it's a way for a centralized, perhaps, location of dissenting views where you can be exposed to it without the perhaps propaganda aspect of, hey, like I'm just watching Fox, I'm just watching some conservative news outlet. It's like, well, there's people from both sides of the aisle that are going to be showcased in heretic news. And I'm screen recording, so I'm also going to show it. So heretic news is like, it's cool. It's a great idea. I really like it. And I think it's got some legs to run on.
Scott, yeah. I was going to say too, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been posting on it. Thank you guys for liking my X post too. I think you two and like porn bots are the only thing that follows me on Twitter at the moment. But do you guys get those, by the way?
Maybe.
From like I'll click it and be like,
I just stopped. I stopped clicking. I just stopped. I ignored them. But yeah, there's a ton of requests. I also made my profile private, where they have to request to follow me.
I was going to say, so I think one of the things that's missing, and kind of something that, this sort of, especially what we saw in the election, the transition, I would say, to like podcasting as mainstream and these sorts of characters, is what Fox and MSNBC and these institutions were at some point was essentially heretic news. It was a compilation of different personalities that were giving you their opinions, or giving you presenting news to you, and that's something that nobody has. I mean, X is that in a sense, because everybody's on X,
Yeah.
But nobody has compiled them into like a watchable format where this is Joe Rogan's new episode. This is, I don't know, whoever is the person that you're watching. That's what actually cable was kind of cool, that you could just leave on a channel and it would just kind of run through, but it got captured by, I think, really just like advertisers and, ideology, and they became tools for influence, which is funny enough, but because we're about to talk about it. But I think it's a great idea, man. Someone needs to centralize these things and take them back. Like even something like the Grammys, for example, that has become like, or award award shows. Like somebody should find all these different people who are speaking about music or art and bring them into one place and have their own award show and present it in a format that's like completely break away from that model, you know, and just move into an online.
There's a good point about how X is just this giant feed of, you know, various articles and news and stuff, and there needs to be some curation, right? Like that's why the networks mainstream, that's why New York Times does what they do, because they're like we have the editors to like go through and filter like what you need to know, right? And I think there needs to be something like that for non-consensus or maybe just more contrarian views where everything's sort of centralized for you. And it's hard because they're the heretic news outlet, like it's all over the place, right? There's podcasts, there's tweet, you know, it's like it's not so easy to separate like how the main networks do it. But yeah, that's sort of the challenge. And by the way, this concept exists in the technology industry. It's called Hacker News. It's where I kind of also got the name from. But Hacker News is a very, very popular feed of articles all relating to technology. Just anything that technologists are interested in, they'll upvote it here and it'll show up on the main feed. It probably has millions of people like looking at it every day. And so that's kind of the idea with this same concept, but just to make it more for the contrarian news. So yeah, see how it goes. I'm definitely gonna like keep working on it. I'm probably gonna put like an hour or two a week on it, and just, you know, main issues right now are just like spreading it. You know, I tried putting it on one Reddit feed, but they took it down pretty quickly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Say that again. I'm sorry. I
put it on a Reddit subreddit, and the moderators like took it down within 5 minutes.
Reddit is just fucking. You got reported.
Yeah. Wow. So I'll have to beat the authorities.
X is going to be. I don't know what X becomes, but I almost can't imagine what it's going to become in the future. But I think that's the place to begin it. You know.
Yeah, it's true. Just to find different. Now there's communities on X, and it's a good point. I should leverage that. I should create a X account for heretic news and
heretic.
Just spread heretic. That's gonna get me for a while. Damn it.
You should do that, man. I've also seen like
check.
I think
check if there's an account already for it.
What's that?
Check if there's an account for it.
Yeah, it's a good call.
I see somebody with the account name, but you could be the Heretic News.
I'm surprised that there's someone with an account name, because the domain was wide open. Had no issues there.
That's so funny that domain. It's so good, man. That means you have to do it.
That's the reason.
The domain is open. That's crazy. You have to do it. Mm-hmm. So basically, this is just your feed's gonna end up being Alex Jones.
Yeah.
All right. So, speaking about influence.
Yes.
So this will be the sort of first one that we're recording. But we had talked about how I would sort of introduce the idea of the book, a little bit of background. So I wrote something up, and I'm going to read it, if that works.
Sure.
All right, so to start this discussion on influence, I'd like us to first acknowledge that humans are creatures of habit. This means that we can observe behaviors, analyze the choices people make in a given situation, and make reasonable predictions about how others might decide in similar circumstances. It's important to distinguish influence from manipulation. While manipulation involves trickery and malicious intent, ethical persuasion or influence has 6 distinct characteristics. Number 1, it is a successful attempt to influence another person. 2, it has an intended goal. 3, there is a clear intent to reach that goal. 4, the person being persuaded maintains their freedom and autonomy. 5, it involves communication. 6, it results in the change of a mental state or perspective. So, to influence someone is to deliberately shape their thoughts through communication while fully respecting their autonomy. The book we're going to review today is Influence by Robert Cialdini. Dr. Robert Cialdini has spent more than 30 years of research in the science of influence and has identified 7 fundamental principles of influence that shape human behavior. We're going to discuss some of those 7 principles today. So,
You have a great podcasting voice, man.
Thanks.
You got it down.
So, speaking of the 7, the first one being reciprocity. How do we want to start this? Anybody want to chime in, share some of those thoughts on reciprocity, or maybe you want to jump around on the 7 principles?
No, I think we can go in order. I think the reciprocity, like many of the principles, we've noticed kind of more subconsciously, but when you really think about it, you realize the power in it. So he talks about how giving out a gift to someone is a much more powerful thing than you think. Because and this could be, if you're a salesperson or if you need to, persuade someone on anything, a good way to persuade them is to just send them a free gift. It could be like I think he gives an example of like a donut, or, a coffee or something. And his main point with that is basically when you give something to someone, they then either consciously or subconsciously think that they now owe you something. And when you're trying to, let's just say, make a sale, if you give them a little donut or coffee, they'll then subconsciously or consciously, probably subconsciously, think that they now have to, give in and make the sale or buy your product. And he gives some good examples about that. But I thought it was interesting. And then he also mentions like kind of like the free trial, the free sample, how that once you get a free sample from somewhere, you're, part of it is just to test the product and see if you like it. But it's also like they're giving you something, so you may want to reward them with your money.
Yeah, I almost feel as though even as we go through these 7 principles of persuasion, they're so basic. They're such fundamental things that when you say them aloud, the people that you say them to, or even while reading it, you're like, of course. Why would it be anything but this? It's so obvious. And I think that's what makes them so powerful, is that when you know what they are, you spot them everywhere. Everywhere you look, you're going to see it. Like holding the door open for someone. If there's a second door nearby, there's this immediate urge to want to hold it for them, right? To give it back. We have like this desire to like balance our social obligations. Like if somebody gives me something, I can't help but feel the urge to give them back something too. And this can be leveraged in so many ways when making a sale. When your waiter brings you chocolates with the check, it's like, give me a nice tip, don't forget I served you type of thing. So I really enjoy learning about this because it is the obvious that when you put words to it becomes so clear. And the veil of confusion of like, why do humans act this way? It just lifts up and you're like, oh, now I can see. Yeah, great.
That's the funniest part, is that it's sort of the obvious that's hidden from yourself. Like you're saying, you're like, how do I make decisions? And if you thought about it before you read this book or something, you might have some inkling. But as soon as you read this, it literally, you're like, oh, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
People give me things and I feel like giving them back. it's really interesting. I think I don't remember if he mentions it in the book, but Benjamin Franklin had a rule that was really interesting, which is like, they didn't have lawnmowers, but it's essentially like you go to your neighbor and you force them into reciprocity. So you say, "Can I borrow your lawnmower?" And then you give it back in a timely manner. Like you use it and you give it back to them, and it builds like a relationship, a reciprocal relationship immediately. I think that, it's way more powerful than even the word. Kind of what you're saying. It's just, it's such an obvious thing that I really believe that it's way more powerful than you kind of think when you read it initially.
Yeah. So for some of the ideas that we're gonna cover today, I've like looked into them a little bit deeper before we have our book club and we're reading a book a month. And the idea of reciprocity is almost like, it's almost a law of be aware. If you're trying to get someone to do something, it's like, be aware that someone's going to give you something if you do something for them. And that if you do something for them is almost the pre-action of reciprocity. It's like, be the first person to give and you will get back more, or you will get back something. So like a little bit of a change in how reciprocity is viewed of, if somebody gives me something, I give them back, or, I did this thing and now they're going to return the favor. It's like, it always starts with give and you will receive.
Yep.
What do you think, to be a heretic on it? What do you think about, like, I read this book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. I don't know if you ever read it, Kyle.
I know it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, I read it, and it talks about, like, a lot of people in their relationships with their significant other will they have like a hidden contract, or they're aware of like, if I give more, I should receive more. But the other person that you're living with has no idea that you're giving them so much, because it's like kind of built into your relationship in a weird way. So
almost like building expectations.
Yeah, or like maybe that's a point of contention in relationships with people. Like, let's say you keep giving people things and they don't reciprocate to you. It's kind of an immediate way to say, well, this person isn't interested in building a relationship, and maybe I shouldn't pursue it. You could almost use the concept in your business. Like, let's say you're trying to sell to somebody, or you're trying to sell something and they're not interested. They don't reciprocate your enthusiasm, let's say, or whatever item you're giving them, then they're not your customer. You don't need to like beat them over the head with chocolates or whatever, like no amount of free samples is going to change their opinion. And similarly in relationships.
So that's almost like, it's almost like the tribal mentality of, if everybody in the community is giving and this one person is never giving back, we should note it and then sort of ostracize them because they're not part of the community. They're not upholding the subconscious, like, moral standard of returning the favor.
Yeah. It's also a way, like, what I thought when I read this book was you can read it through two frames, which is like, as to bring light to these very obvious things, and you can read it as in sort of like a morally acceptable way, but you could also read it from a very skeptical and like kind of paranoid way too, which would be like, okay, if someone's not reciprocating back to me, for example, then I know that this person is not interested in building something with me. But you could also read it from, if you reciprocate and people give back to you, it's exciting. There's like, I don't know, this is almost like a 48 Laws of Power kind of book to me. It felt like, like you can read both sides of the coin and use it as you choose. But
all the principles, like, I didn't really take it that it was 100% success rate or anything. Kind of say, like, in general these things might work, But yeah, it's definitely depends on the situation, what product you're selling, what you're trying to convince someone of. But if you get like the general principle, I think holds pretty well, that if you do gift someone, and it has to be organic and it has to be, not like you're just trying to suck up to them, but if it's a little more natural and, you just go out of your way to get someone a coffee or get someone a donut, usually something good will come of it.
Right.
And so that's kind of,
I forgot what I was about to say. It'll pop into my head in a minute.
You want to move on to the next one?
Sure.
Yeah. So the next one was commitment and consistency. Scott, you had mentioned just before about the free trial, and I feel like this principle of being committed or remaining consistent in what we do and say. There's so many different avenues to take this, but just off of the free trial, it's like you've said to yourself, hey, I would try this product. And then you do try the product, right? And then the moment that the free trial is over, you've already sort of made the commitment to yourself of, I'm going to keep using this product because it could be something valuable to me. And so you're more likely to just keep paying for it.
exactly. Yeah, I think he calls it the foot in the door technique. And really smart, again, kind of one of those things. It's obvious in hindsight that this technique is done quite a lot all over society. And yeah, it's basically you start with a singular small request and then you escalate it over time. Good example is the free sample. You just start with like a little bite and then that leads to sale. Or he mentioned, when you see those people on the streets with some cause that they're trying to talk to you about, the ask is just signing something on paper, signing their petition. And then that's like the kind of foot in the door. They teach you about the cause, they get you to sign something. And then it basically from there, it increases over time. By them asking you to make larger commitments. That's when they ask you to like make donations and whatnot, but it just starts with that signature. He also gave the example of homeowners who agreed to display a small sign on their yard. They were okay with like a tiny sign at first about safe driving. And then like over time, because they started with that small sign, they were much more willing later on to put like a really large billboard on their lawn.
That's so funny.
They wouldn't have done that, at the start. They have to start small by getting the foot in the door.
Yeah, I'm imagining this person like running a research and just walking up to the door once a month and being like, we got a new sign. And it's like slightly bigger and bigger and bigger. And the person that is living in the house is like, what did I do to myself? Why do I have these large signs?
It's like every time they walk in the house, like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Well, it just popped into my head what I was going to say about reciprocity. 100% Bill de Blasio read this book before he was giving out free hamburgers.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. Free hamburger. Vaccine, yeah.
Jeez.
You get a Shake Shack burger. That was so crazy.
For the commitment and consistency, I see this come up a lot in politics. It's my commitment is to X policy, or my commitment is to X objective. And so regardless of what it takes to get to that objective, I'm committed to whatever plan the politicians come up with, even if the plan is really stupid, even if the plan is going to destroy things along the way, I'm going to stay committed to it. I think an example of this is like when we look at the Democratic population, they're very committed to ensuring that everybody has the right to autonomy, right? The ability to choose what you do with your body. But when we apply that to anything else, the right to choose what to do with your business, the right to choose what to do for your children, it doesn't quite reach the same level of, yes, this is correct. It's like right now there's a lot of conversation around Republicans being fearful of children being swayed into transitioning, which we can account that to a lot of different things. But the Democrats are like, no, the child should always have the choice. And it's like, well, the child can't choose to do any number of things up until the age of 18. Is not even legally allowed to drink up until 21. Why are they allowed to do something so serious when they're very young? And that's not to say that there aren't some people who need transition, but it is very much to say that we don't always and shouldn't always believe that the child knows what is best for themselves, because there's just no way to know.
Well, that's funny you say that, Kyle, because it's so against in every other, like the consistency of being hit over the head with this messaging has blinded people to the fact of what you're saying, that like a young child cannot make decisions in almost any realm of their personal life, outside of a parent's authority. That, like, I mean, the one example you see float around the internet all the time is like a tattoo. You can't even put a tattoo on your body as a child, and it is funny thing to see the sort of disconnect between the disconnect between those things. But on like the conservative side, one that I see is, a lot of conservatives are, or not a lot, but there's a good amount of conservatives that are completely against abortion, but they have no problem going to war and like decimating a population of people. And it's like, well, if one is murder, one is also murder. So
yeah, absolutely.
See inside of their argument is, they have blinders on as well, or not blinders, but that they've just been hit with the same sort of
commitment,
talking points and commitment
yeah.
to their belief that they have to argue and they can't see anything outside of it. It is. I think I jokingly texted you guys like this alternate title is how like the peasantry makes decisions. I include myself in all those things.
Yeah, we're all susceptible.
Exactly, yeah. But it is true to see like that is just seeing the mechanism by which you make these decisions, and like this one I think is probably one of the more powerful ones.
And it's not to say, right, so I gave an example of the Democrats having a talking point. You gave an example of the Republicans. It's not to say that having these ideologies and these beliefs are even wrong. It's just that there's nuance to it, that if we're unable to discuss it, then we can't find the correct path forward. If we can't talk about it because the very act of talking about it means that you're transphobic or that you're anti-war, it's like, well, no, there's maybe some wars that are very necessary, but let's figure out by conversation which ones are truly necessary and valuable for us as a country to step into. And that's completely lost when you are stuck in the commitment and consistency of, no, this is my objective and I'm always going to argue for it.
Yeah.
All right, should we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
All right. The next one was about social proof, right? So people typically, speaking of, the peasantries, how they make decisions.
I think that's what I texted you guys when I read this one.
People look to others' behavior to decide what is correct, especially when things are more uncertain. It's, why the quote unquote best-selling product labels work really well. If someone sees that something is, selling very well, they're much more likely to buy it. This is, the average person, right? Same thing on Amazon, much more likely to buy the top rated or most reviewed products. And, he also mentioned like the laugh tracks in sitcoms, like Seinfeld or something.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you hear a lot of other people laughing, it's just more likely for you to think that something is funny. And
don't hate me on this. I'm so sorry, but there are some sitcoms that. Who's the guy who wrote Seinfeld?
Larry David.
And what was the show he was in?
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
So like I watch that. I don't think it's funny, but everyone around me thinks it's funny. You guys probably do.
I love that show. I'm so
And if I watch that show with someone else and they laugh, I look at them and I'm like, am I supposed to think this is funny too? What am I not getting?
I gotta watch it with you. I gotta watch it with you just to see what I'm laughing at that you're not. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's a certain kind of humor. It's not that surprising, right? Like we all laugh at different things, and Larry David and Curb just has a particular type of humor, and you may not think it's funny. There's a lot of shows that I think are good or not good that a lot of people disagree with.
Yeah.
For me, this rule personally, it was the most interesting to me because I think that it's almost like a like I don't know if you guys have ever felt like when you're going against what a popular opinion is, or for example, let's say when you showed the person the podcast and they were like recoiled from Joe Rogan, it's like a physical feeling inside of you, like, oh shit, like I'm in new territory, like
I did something wrong.
Yes, and you're like, it's so physical, and I think that like it's a very rare individual that can fully break away from that, and I'm not sure it's good to fully break away from it, but that feeling of like standing in what you know, like or what you think is it's a crazy feeling. Like it actually is a physical reaction that you have to it.
Yeah. This principle is also backed by, if you guys have ever read or researched Rene Girard's mimetic theory.
No, you know what? I've been dying to read that.
I've heard a lot about it, haven't stepped into it.
It's very philosophical. It's not the easiest thing to read, but the overall theory is very similar to this particular principle, which is very few humans have the ability to truly think for themselves, and just by our nature, where we copy people, we imitate people, so we will buy a car, for example, based on what we see other people driving. So the whole theory is we basically don't make our own decisions. We just copy what we see out and that could be our friends, it could be people we admire, but we don't basically have our own unique beliefs. And I think it could be challenged in certain ways, but I think it's generally correct principle.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm not really here. I'm just a shell of everything I've ever seen. Two things honestly come to mind when I think of social proof. One is what you just said, Scott, of like you again, the outsourcing of like what is right, what is wrong. I have such distinct memories of being a kid and being in uncomfortable scenarios, like on the wrestling team, or like dance class that my parents made me go to, like formal dance. And it's like, I was super shy. And so I would look around at the other kids and like, what are they doing? That's probably the right thing to do. Let me copy what they're doing. So that's one thing. And then the second thing that comes to mind is the prank videos of somebody's walking down the street and then jumps back and like looks up, and everyone around them also jumps back and looks up. And I'm like, you can't help it. You look for other cues. You look for cues in other people to sort of find comfort and safety in your environment.
If you think about it, though, it's such a good way to actually figure out what's risky. Like naturally, if someone jumps back and stares up at the sky, like you could just be in immediate danger. Like you have to react to that. You're forced to it because of the nature of reality. Like you could die any second, so you're like, oh, what's coming? Yeah.
And then there's the bystander effect, which Cialdini mentions. People are less likely to help in an emergency if when others are around, because you just assume that someone else is gonna take the lead and help.
Yes. Would you call that almost like inversion thinking applied to social proof, of like it's the opposite, right? You look to other people for actions to do. And if they're not doing actions, you then sort of go, I don't need to act type of thing. Like, it's fascinating to see like the overlap there.
Yeah. But that is a social proof in a sense. You're like, hey, like, should we be doing anything? And you look around and everyone's looking at everyone. They're like, no. And I mean, it's funny because all it takes is like one voice to stand up. Like something crazy is going on and someone's like, stop doing that. And all of a sudden, like 4 people are like, hey, don't do that.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was in a theater with my dad and we were watching, what were we watching? I can't remember what movie. I was young too. And the trailer for Die Hard like 4 came on. And some guy was screaming at the top of his lungs in the front of the theater, like, he's back! Screaming, he's back! And it wasn't that crowded in the theater, but everyone was kind of like looking at each other, screaming, like at the top of his lungs. Maybe he wasn't mentally all there.
Yeah.
I think my dad must have been having a bad day because I've never seen him do anything like this. He stood up. He's like, hey, shut the fuck up to the guy. And all of a sudden the whole theater was like, yeah, man, shut up. We've had enough of you. Like,
Yeah.
He's like, I'm sorry.
There's also that viral video on YouTube. You can find it where some guy just starts dancing in like a field and there's tons of people around, and he's he basically you start to see people around him dancing as well, and by the end of the video, like a minute into the video, the whole field is dancing.
Wow.
And yeah,
I think I've seen that video. That's the one where they're sort of like on a bit of a hill.
yeah, it's on a hill.
Yeah.
And the whole point is people are unlikely to be the first person to start dancing, but once you see it socially acceptable, you are much more likely to get in on whatever the crowd's doing. And then it becomes like you don't want to be the one person that's not dancing.
Yes.
Right? Inverts. All right. Should we go on to the next?
Yeah. Principle number 4. It is liking. So this is, the tribe mentality, who is like us. I think this is just so fundamental, so genetically ingrained of if they're like me, I should protect them, probably because they've got some genes I have and I want them to survive. And, this could, I think liking comes out in, I play soccer or, this sort of comes back to, I use this product and so do you. And so I trust this person a little bit more. Liking, I think, even has something to do with compliments of, producing the halo effect. If this person is always really kind and compliments my outfits, I'm going to trust them a little bit more, maybe believe what they say to a higher degree than John down the other side of the street who never compliments me. Like, what a shithead. Why isn't he like my outfits? Like, I'm fucking cool, right? Yeah, I think this is a pretty simple one as far as the principles go in terms of, get someone to like you by doing things for them, by having shared interests. If you're going to make a cold call, it's horrible to talk about the weather, but if it's crazy weather recently, just be like, this is crazy. Even if you don't live in the same area, calling someone in like Missouri and you live in Florida, like, damn, that was a crazy storm we had last night, right? Like, oh yeah, it was wild. Whatever that might be.
I don't care what anybody says. When you're young, you're like, all people want to do is talk about the weather and small talk. Dude, small talk is the greatest thing that human beings do. I have connected with so many people off of the rain. Dude, it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, something to get the conversation started. It's why sports, I think, are very popular, right?
Yeah.
It gives you a common team or player that you know about and you can root for. And in persuasion, I think establishing shared interests is really important. Actually, right before this, we were talking about Daniel Penny and the Marine who is now on trial for manslaughter. And about a week ago, or maybe even the last few days ago, the video of him being interrogated by New York City Detectives came out, got released. And you actually saw this principle applied right away. So these two detectives come in, and one of them, and people now think that this detective was lying, but he comes in and he starts talking about how he served in the Marines as well. And he, Kyle, you would know better, but they go back and forth about the units they were in and when they served.
Mm-hmm.
And he spends about a minute, and I'm sure he could have just learned all of this before, he's a detective, so I'm sure he's good at this stuff, but learning the certain units and everything. And he spends about 30 seconds, maybe even a minute, establishing that shared interest. And this is a really powerful one, because the Marine Corps is a bond, right, that you share with people. It's a tight-knit community, and it really sets up the rest of the conversation, because after that, Daniel Penny trusts this person,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's how they get him talking about what happened. And he actually waived his his Miranda rights, to consult with a lawyer. So I thought that was pretty
Terrible decision.
Yeah.
Silence and a lawyer for any one or two people who might find our podcast.
Speaking from experience here, Doug, what's going on?
No, 0%. I've never been arrested. Yeah, this is an incredibly powerful one to get people. I was thinking, I just had this thought, which is, like a lot, there still is slavery, but there was slavery all around the world. And I think there's like an argument that's made that they say it's Christianity, but I think it's really like religious principles and ideas led to the abolition of slavery. And I was wondering if you guys think that might be because, if that theory is true, that might be because like religion kind of puts things in the context of everybody's the same, like everybody is on the same, because it presents mortality, and like you're immortal, and so everyone's mortal and everyone's suddenly equal in
The face of God.
framework. Yeah, exactly. So that's what it is. That's a principle that, like, religious or transcendent ideas humanize every individual on a deeper level, regardless of, race, ethnicity. I guess those are the two same things. But
Okay. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it though?
I don't know. I don't know anymore.
I don't know either.
It builds a broader, like, you're no longer a part of the tribe of your 250 people. You're a part of the tribe of, like, humanity. It broadens people's likability or something.
Yeah, maybe. I'd have to think about that a little bit more. I like the idea when you first say it. I like the concept of, religion being some sort of mode that has, that transports this ethical framework that has application to stop slavery. But then I very quickly remember that, lots of religions enslaved other religious groups, right? But I do think there's something to stand on there. Let's come back to that in a future episode.
We had to think about it. Maybe it's an idea to explore with each book.
Yeah.
Bringing it up. We look for the answer in every book that we find. Supply it to the most unrelated subject. Cooking. We read a book on cooking.
What's the next one?
The next one is, I think, a really interesting one for the three of us. It talks about authority, right? And how people tend to obey authority figures, or those that we perceive as experts. And, it's why titles in society really matter, right? A doctor is well regarded in society, professor, a PhD. These kinds of titles carry a lot of weight, and it's because people tend to kind of cede their thinking and beliefs and sometimes freedoms to authority figures. And, we saw this a lot during COVID, where there were these taglines, trust the science, right? Or trust the doctors. And we basically went through a period where we outsourced our thinking to these experts. And, it was sort of a panic time. But, we sort of just let them run things, right? It's and things that are not qualified to run. Like, we were having doctors make policy about businesses being shut down, which affects the economy. We were having them make decisions about schools being shut down, affecting the whole education system of the country. So it's a very common thing that comes up. We just trust the experts, it's kind of tricky, because it's like, what are you going to do if you don't trust the experts? Who are you going to rely on? I think that's where sort of independent media comes into play. I think it's why Joe Rogan has done so well. Joe Rogan is just a guy that's super curious, that brings on people that he trusts, and they, make a, they go through a conversation where they talk about what they think is correct. But yeah, I think this one comes up quite a lot. But yeah, what do you guys think?
Just on the point of Joe Rogan bringing people on his podcast, I think one of the challenging things that the general population faces is that when you have a doctor tell you to do something, you go, okay, this doctor knows more about health, about medicine. I'm going to trust them. When you have a doctor go on Joe Rogan who has a dissenting view compared to the mainstream rhetoric, it's not that you go, okay, this guy's a doctor too, and he has a different view, so I trust him. It's, oh, this doctor has a different view, and it goes against everything the mainstream says. Maybe I should entertain the thought. Maybe there is some validity to what they are saying. Not, it is true, but let me give this a chance and think about it. Because that sort of opens then the door for you to go, well, here's some argument coming in from mainstream. Do I trust it? Does it hold up its soundness in argument? And I think that's lost on a lot of people. Of when I listen to a scientist, and that's mainly what I listen to on Rogan, is scientists, journalists. I don't really listen to the fighting or the celebrities. It's give me some sort of information I'm not going to get anywhere else, so that I can entertain the thought and come to my own conclusions. And yeah, it's something that is missed, I think. That second thought of, let me give it a chance and then ask questions.
Yeah, I think that this principle is something that's going to be really exciting to explore. This next crazy book that I have you guys picking up.
Can you not pick such thick books next time?
It's not thick. It's 200 pages.
The one I got is not 200. Maybe I ordered the wrong one.
What? No, it's 310. I'm sorry. It's important though that I think that authority is good if it comes from an honest place and it's not dogmatic, which is the problem. Is like a scientist who's willing openly. You saw this with Joe Rogan, for example, is that he would invite scientists from dissenting views to come and argue, and the ones who were presented in the mainstream almost never would go. And when they would go and they had the slightest pushback, they would crumble in front of, if Joe Rogan is crumbling you and you're a doctor, that's not good, really, it's not a good thing. And that's I'm not saying Joe Rogan's stupid. I'm saying that another doctor should be the one that crumbles your argument, not a guy who's doing podcasting. And you saw that with Sanjay Gupta, who went on there. He just sort of crumbled under any pressure. And I think that the I think that a lot of people, it's very funny to see. This is the split for me that cracks me up. It's not really funny, but it cracks me up, is that the left simultaneously says that capitalism or like free market and these things create monopolies and create, they're all about power dynamics and all these things. And then when it comes to receiving information, they completely do away with that. And they're like, this is what you have to believe. They don't see that somebody has for example, somebody from CNN or from MSNBC or from Fox may not push back against medical companies that essentially pay for their entire salary and their budget. They forget that that's part of their business model. They don't.
No, it's not a business, Doug. Come on.
Yeah, no, I know that. They're doing it from Sanjay Gupta's out here from the goodness of his heart. It's like maybe to an extent he is, but he also, there's things he can and cannot say within the framework of his job. Yeah. And I think
and his group and his party, right? Like it's sort of they're all on the same team and they can't go against it. Otherwise they'll be blackballed essentially, thrown out.
So I think that people place authority on things that have almost like an aesthetic of authority rather than someone making a good argument or, a true, someone who's making a good logical argument and backing it up. They rely, I think that a lot of, because life is so complex, I'm sorry to ramble, but I just, this one's really important to me, is that because life is so complicated for your everyday life and you have so many things that you have to attend to, whether you have children or you're just dealing with a lot with your business and everything. Authority and the aesthetic of authority, which would be like not our political institutions necessarily, but our, like, let's say, New York Times or Fox News or these sorts of institutions, they bear the aesthetic of authority. And so a lot of people will just listen to them because they don't have the time to listen to a 2.5 hour argument between two people discussing an idea.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think that aesthetics play a way larger role. Well, he says this, right? He says, like, if a doctor puts on a white coat, you're more likely to listen to them. It's an aesthetic thing.
Yeah, it's aesthetic, but it's also titles, right? It's just the authority, that there really is something in those titles. And he brought up the experiment that happened in the 70s. It was the Stanley
Milgram
experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was in the 60s, and this is one of the most famous studies in psychology. And basically, they were trying to investigate how far people would go in obeying authority figure. And basically, they had random participants assign basically shock people with a shock wave. And they were, instructed to administer electric shocks each time they answered a question correctly. And basically, there was this doctor figure, probably wearing a white coat, who just kept saying to increase the intensity. And they clearly saw the damage they were doing to the person being shocked. And, the shocks didn't actually happen because it was a study. So it was all kind of faked. But they came out to the numbers that came out were 65% of participants delivered the maximum shock of 450 volts, despite believing it could cause serious harm. So they knew it would cause harm, and they still did it, right? Because there was this authority pressure to comply. This authority figure, the lab-coated experimenter, told them to do this, and they basically just listened. I think it's why we saw the Holocaust happen, right? You had these authority figures who were leading Germany at the time, Hitler and his party, and it got a lot of normal people, average people who didn't have ideological beliefs to do horrible things because it was all led by the authorities at the time.
There's a crazy book about that called Ordinary Men. but it's about a police force in Poland. I don't know if you guys have ever read it. Oh my gosh, that book is wild. It's basically how a police force went from like just being normal policemen in Poland to like shooting pregnant women in the back of the head. Like it is, and the psychological like destruction that they undergo to get there is crazy. That's a crazy book.
Yeah, we can talk. We can talk about this one subject for hours. Last thing I'll just say is like it's a really interesting time right now where the authority figures are being upended because we have a much more independent media environment, right? We never had this, but we never had the internet before. We never had independent podcasters like Joe Rogan. We never had something like X. And when I say never, I mean up until, you know, the last decade or two, that, you know, people would get their news back in the 70s and 80s from like one guy, like a Walter Cronkite figure. Now it's so diverse and, you know, so independent. Most people are getting their news from independent podcasters now. People are getting less and less news from cable and more on social media, X, and it's just a really interesting time to, and I think it started with COVID really, where we saw like authority figures lied to us over and over again, and or they were just plain wrong in many ways, right? And now we're
too much. It was too much at once.
Yeah.
It really cracked the facade for a lot of people. I think it was too intense. It affected people too intensely.
And I think there's a balance, right? Because we don't want to be too skeptical of experts and authority, right? Because experts and authority do make the world run, right? Like, would we have, you know, planes run effectively and land without experts who know everything about planes, right? About the engineering and the science behind how planes, you know? So there's just a balance. I try to not completely dismiss experts, but also kind of get multiple perspectives from people who disagree with each other, and then try to do my best to make my own judgment call. Actually, Doug, you pointed me to that podcast by Dave Smith, right?
Yeah.
Who is making a counterpoint to Sam Harris. Sam Harris is kind of the guy right now who is this institutional expert, and he's scared about society going into a direction where we trust the experts less. And Dave Smith kind of made some counterpoints, which was really good. Is like, well, he was like, first of all, I can find my own experts to counter your experts, right? Like we could all find our scientists that disagree with your scientists, right? So who's to say my scientists don't know as much as your scientists, right? And then you just see over and over the experts being wrong when it comes to war. Like the experts got us into, you know, the Iraq and Afghanistan war for 20 years, which cost us trillions of dollars and tons of lives. And meanwhile, people like Dave Smith, who are anti-war advocates, were saying, let's not get ourselves into this, right? So you start to see this over and over again, especially in the last decade or two, of us having this diverse media environment, which enables us to kind of undermine the experts.
Yeah, I think the best thing to remember for this principle and the principle of authority in general is if you try and pick at you have to have somewhat of a skeptical mind and pick at the person's motivations for claiming what they're claiming, and I think that's why this sort of media facade has cracked so intensely, because it really is because of COVID, in my opinion. Is because people started looking at the motivations of the people who were, whether it's ideological motivations politically or it's monetary motivations. If, for example, the military issues that Dave was discussing, you have to look, what is driving this motivation? Is it, you know, like with the Ukraine war, for example, is it because that's historically an important geopolitical asset to nations, or there's a 4 trillion in resources there, or is it because this guy's bad and we're good and we're gonna, you know?
It's obviously because Putin is bad.
Yeah,
it's the only reason.
But I know it's so funny that's, to me, it's so funny that is the reasoning. It's like, meanwhile, then in the same breath, people will turn around and be like, America liquidated the Native Americans. You're like, yeah, that's what nations do. You know, it's like, but anyway, yeah, that's the best way to pick at authority and figure out who at least is trying to genuinely discover the truth. Maybe they're not right, but you know, maybe they actually do have your best interest rather than, or the general people's best interest rather than their own in mind.
Yep. All right, we got two more to get through. Next one is about scarcity and the rule of the few. So this principle talks about how perceived scarcity increases value. Scarcity always increases value, right? The less supply there is of something, the higher the prices will be.
If demand is the same, yeah, absolutely.
Right. If demand is the same. But Cialdini talks about how you can make up scarcity, right? So he talks about how it's perceived scarcity. And so people are more motivated by the thought of losing something than gaining something of equal value. And where that comes into use is kind of limited time offers, that you see like act now or only 2 left in stock. And you see that in basically every e-commerce website now where it'll say, when you're buying a plane ticket, right, it'll always say 3 left at this price or 2 left at this price. And so, yeah, people are, again, more motivated by the thought of losing something than gaining something of equal value. Exclusive memberships also play into this, right? Where it could be like a Costco, right? Like you just pay for the yearly fee and you get exclusive access. And that's why the Costco kind of business model works really well, because people really feel like they're part of this community and membership.
I feel like if I could hop in here, the idea of like the artificially inflated scarcity of the limited time offers, the 2 left at this price, like you just said, it happens ad nauseum now where I'm repulsed by it. If I see things that are not going to be around, my first question is not, where's my wallet? Like, let me buy this. My first question is not like, do I even fucking need this? Like, what is this thing I want to buy? Like, there must be 100 other things of equal value that offer me the same sort of service. Why do I need this one that's about to run out? And, I say that. I'm still absolutely affected by the scarcity principle.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
If it's
1,000%. No. I'm not.
Got you.
Yeah. I'm no guru that like reads through everything, but I do catch myself recognizing when I see those sales banners or whatever. I go, wait a second. What am I even buying this for? Like, I saw a sweater online on social media. It was a cool sweater. I wanted it. It was like a Sherpa type thing, like I'm wearing right now. And I was like, oh my God, how do I get this? I want it. And then along my journey of trying to find the link for it, I was like, it doesn't even fucking matter. I've got plenty of sweaters. What am I doing?
Of course. That always happens. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Dude, I do the same thing. Like, I'm a real sucker for, because, like I make music or whatever. I'm a real sucker for, like, they have these things called plugins that are for like your music program that you create with, and they give you new cool sound. Dude, my entire Instagram feed is plugins. Like, it's Jesus. Like one created by some guy in his basement that sounds like elephants rumbling or something. It's like, do the weird sounds. Oh, dude, but a lot of them have too many steps to close out. So I always put my email, and then I start getting emails like, hey, you still have stuff in your shopping cart. Like, I have the steps stop you.
Yes.
If you have more steps, it stops your impulse.
Yep. It's the friction. The more friction there is between you and the click button of buying, the less likely you are to complete the purchase.
By the way, that is a cool sweater.
Thank you. Yeah. I can't find it anywhere else. It's got this penguin icon on it. And
what brand is that?
I don't know.
No, there's a brand with a penguin.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
Well, obviously, you're wearing it.
Yeah. Of course. So one of my favorite examples of the scarcity principle influencing people is the De Beers and diamond industry, because it is completely and entirely created out of artificial functions. Diamonds are not a rare thing. I used to work in the diamond industry, and there are so many diamonds, and the price of a diamond is astronomical compared to the weight of the rock. And everyone still wants them because there were so many campaigns that built up the idea that diamonds are forever, diamonds are a girl's best friend, that diamonds are the most beautiful thing. It's a true symbol of your devotion and love for another person. And everywhere in all sorts of stories, young women or individuals who would have a ring purchased for them for an engagement are told this is your partner's true form of devotion. It's like, no, it's fucking not. It's carbon compressed in a rock, and it's pretty, sure, but it is not worth tens of thousands of dollars. Of course, I say all this, and I bought my wife a diamond ring. It's like, you can't escape from it. It's so annoying.
You know what that principle is? That's like me saying, talking about the weather is awesome. That's that for girls. Like, you could make every argument against it, but it's such a ingrained part of society at this point that there's no way out of it. You're trapped. You literally, civilization would have to end before that ends. Like, we'd have to collapse and build as cavemen from the ashes in order to get rid of that. There's no way it goes away.
Yeah.
And it's 100% manufactured, 100% created. What was it, like the 1950s they did it or something?
Something. I don't remember. It was many moons ago.
But then you ever see those videos of birds gathering plastic bits and flashing it around to you ever see those videos?
Well, our desire for shiny things, right? There's something to be said about that. Like, we are drawn to the unique, the scarce, right? That's the principle, scarcity. And perhaps it could be argued, if you really want to get esoteric with it, it could be argued that, human beings are the seed for artificial intelligence. And so we are supposed to seek out shiny things in order to build other shiny things.
Take them back to the Met. I'll never forget that day. I remember standing in the Met talking about that. Maybe gold. Do you remember we were talking about that?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, maybe gold is driving us to collect it so that we can build the next version of ourselves. What do you think, Scott?
I'm not sure, but with Bitcoin is a good example of built-in scarcity, right? It's programmed that there can only be a certain amount of Bitcoin created per year. And this was pretty amazing that it was built in this way, so that, unlike, like you said, diamonds or gold, which there can always be, for all we know, there could be a giant, gold reserve that's found, which would increase the supply.
Scott, say less. China just found a gold deposit. It's fucking massive.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Sometimes the mines will hold them back too. They won't release the information so that they can control the price.
Yeah.
Oil companies do that too. Oil companies will hold back oil. To inflate the prices.
Yep. I was having this conversation recently with someone. So first of all, Scott, literally China just found a huge, massive deposit of gold. And I don't know how much gold that then adds to the supply, but a recent conversation I was having was that Bitcoin, it seems like maybe you and I are both orange-pilled. Bitcoin is the only scarce thing in the world. In reality, you could say, not because there are no other scarce things, but because the volume of those other things, so gold, for example, is a truly scarce resource on Earth. But as humans, in our short span, in our short lifespan, we'll never see the totality of that scarcity. Like there's just so much gold, and we're constantly finding new deposits that we'll never see when it ends, right? So we might be like a sliver of how much gold is actually available, and we know it ends at some point, but because we're never going to get there in our lifetime, gold inflates, right? The inflation of gold is like we find 1 or 2% more, we add 1 or 2% more to the total supply every year. And good, because we need it to build technology, but that doesn't make it scarce in our lifetime.
Yeah. But I would say that there are, other than Bitcoin, there are many things like land in New York City is scarce, right? We're not going to find some huge new plot of land in New York City to buy, right? So there are some things that have built-in scarcity that we can't get around.
Wait a second. We can pour dirt into the East and Hudson River and create more land. And every time we tear down a building that's 4 stories and build one that is 40, we create new land.
Good point. Yeah. Actually, they are extending the island of Manhattan southward. In the next, I don't think they're building new housing, or maybe they are, but.
Well, that's how I think it's past Canal Street. That might be too far, but the whole like lower half of Manhattan was created. It's man-made. It's not.
Yeah. I think like Battery Park.
You know how they did it?
What?
Do you know how they did it? Is Manhattan's the first place you could buy real estate in the river. Like we'll get there eventually. I want to buy that plot inside of the river. You could do that, and they did it by sinking ships, and from the meatpacking district, they would take the bodies of cows and dump like what was left into the river to fill up the riverbank.
You making that up?
No,
Yeah, I've heard that.
100%. I swear on my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they filled it in too, like they dumped dirt in there and stuff. But that's like one of the ways that they did it. They would just dump it into the river, and they would sink like full like galleons of old ships. They would just sink them down there.
Yeah, but Kyle, I would say like there's a little pushback on your like the scarcity matters for like short to medium term, right? Like we know that in the next 10 years, or let's just say 5 to 10 years, we know that gold is most likely going to still be scarce and provide a lot of value, right? Even though China just found this huge deposit, it's still going to take a ton of time to dig it and process it and everything. So there is an element of scarcity kind of matters now. Like housing prices are super high right now because we know that nothing's going to happen in the next 5 years to dramatically increase housing supply.
Wait, but that's not the reason why houses are so expensive right now. The reason why houses are so expensive right now is that the production of houses, the creation of houses, is at a steady pace. And so if you live in an area like I do, where instead of on a plot of land or like a plot in whatever, on the block, instead of building a single family house, they're building 2 family houses. And what we have is more people who are in older generations are buying second and third houses where they don't live, and then they're renting them out. That's adding an artificial element to the cost of a house. I mean, I'm putting offers in on condos and houses now with my wife, and it's like we're being outbid by people who are paying all cash and at least 50 to 100,000 more than asking price or listed price. It's not because there are no houses. It's because there are people with 2-3 houses already, and they're buying another.
But it is because there's not. If there were, hypothetically, if there were 1 million more houses in that town that you're looking at, the price would go down, right? It's always a supply and demand thing.
Right, but it's not just because there are not enough houses. It's because other people who have houses are buying more than they actually need in order to make money.
But that's also not artificial, right? That's supply and demand. There's demand for whatever reason. The reasons don't really matter, right? For whatever reason, there's demand for people buying those houses, and there's not enough supply. So when you have that, the prices go.
The one argument against that, Scott, is that there are sort of monopolistic principles at work there. It's like a lot of institutions will buy up a ton of single family homes and rent it, because that's become sort of like the business model now, which is buy up single family homes, rent them out, and treat your portfolio as like an apartment building. Instead of, if you just bought another single family house, there's a lot of cost that comes, and kind of unknown costs, which is like damages and stuff. But if you buy up 500 single family homes as an institution, suddenly it changes your like IRR and your returns in a really different way. So the other thing that's kind of pernicious about that, what Kyle's saying, you're right, you're 100% correct about the supply and demand aspect of it, which is the supply is getting bought up and therefore the price increases. But what you're seeing a lot of institutions do is they can just acquire capital at a much lower interest rate than Kyle or you or I could. So they're using that money and changing their business models to buy up gigantic portions of like create portfolios, and they kind of have to do it in like a back channel way. Like they'll create LLC entities that are just like for buying this house, and then buy the house and have the portfolio buy the LLC. Like there's a lot of levels of
Yeah, it gets complicated, and like as we know, there's a lot of regulations around building housing, which negatively affects supply. So,
you want to talk about propaganda though, and just like people's opinions? The real estate industry is the least understood industry by the people that are buying homes and everything. It is, in my experience, most people in the industry really want to build people homes at a lower price, but the amount of regulation, and you don't just deal. It's not like it's centralized under one government. You have to deal with different localities that have different processes. Dude, these people live to make the process slow. Like people want to drive, and while that process slows down, you have a tremendous. You're working on debt, so all of a sudden your interest is building up that you're paying, and that gets incorporated into the price of the house, because it's not like one guy has a portfolio that's building 1,000 homes. It's a company with investors, and suddenly the investors need their return. And dude, it is that's the line I use when I talk to the city. I talk to I call for permitting and stuff all the time. And I use that line. I'm like, you're making houses more expensive. You're the reason that my generation can't afford homes.
Call them out.
Yeah. They get so nervous. Nobody ever confronts them. Like, your lack of work and your inability to respond to a basic email is the reason that my generation can't afford homes. Literally, because this could have been done in 15 minutes, and it's taken us 6 months. Like, and I mean, this is my job, and this is the stress I have to deal with. But
it's very frustrating, yeah.
It's frustrating. And then you have, just like these giants that are just outbidding Kyle, like
Sick.
for $100,000. $100,000, dude. Who's throwing around $100,000?
Our realtor, she's someone that we have had some connection to for a while. She shared with us a listing that was put on the market for $8.5. So $850,000. We're not going to buy that house, but she just wanted to show us the absurdity of the market right now. There was over 50 people who put in offers, and 9 people put in over $1 million on an $850,000 listed house. Who's putting in $1 million bid on a house like that? That's wild.
That has access to capital and can get a low interest rate from the bank. They're like, why not? What am I going to pay on my mortgage a month if I can afford it? Why not get that $1 million, let it grow in value, maybe redesign it, and flip it to somebody? Someone's going to do that all day.
Yeah.
No, it's really messed up. And then on top of it, developers. I'm sorry to like ramble on about this. I know everyone probably has stuff to do, but developers. The other crazy thing is, like in 2008, people still in the industry still bear the scars of 2008, man, because like a lot of the huge builders, like companies I can't name because I work with them, but they just abandoned the contracts of like general contractors, and there's different phases. So you have like raw land, then you get like the land zoned and permitted. Sometimes that's just another company, and they sell that to the people that build the homes. And so a lot of times there will be contracts in place for that process at a agreed sale price, let's say. A lot of the middle guys in 2008 got caught holding the development bag, and they're like small time guys. And a lot of these huge companies just abandoned the contracts and killed them. So a lot of people are afraid to take that risk anymore to develop. It's like, it's scary kind of, to have $30 million hanging above your head that you have to return. It's like the sort of dominoes, and you don't want to get abandoned by some industry giant.
Jesus. On to the last principle, the seventh principle. I feel like I'd like to sort of correct something I said earlier, which this seventh principle is unity. When we were talking about the liking principle, I had sort of alluded to liking being, a shared team or like a shared ideology. Liking is more so the principle that is similarities, complements, you're cooperating with someone on a project, whereas unity is a shared identity of, I have the same identity as this person. We are both Black. We are both Swedish. We are both Democrats, right? Unity is identity. Liking is cooperation, complements, and so on, similarities. Just want to call that out because unity, the importance of unity, is that it's stronger than liking. It's more powerful, and then thus warrants acknowledgement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. In chapter 7, the principle he talks about is instant influence. So he kind of summarizes the main principles, right? And he emphasizes in this chapter kind of like the automatic nature of our decision-making process, right? And how a lot of this stuff, as we've talked about, kind of happens subconsciously. We don't really think about a lot of these things as they're happening. It's sort of like if you guys have read Thinking Fast and Slow, there's sort of a system A and system B. A is the very automatic, quick, like intuitive decision making, whereas system B is the slow, taking your time, really thinking through part of your brain. And system A just happens so quick and so subconsciously and so intuitive that it's really, really susceptible to different kinds of influence, techniques, biases that we come across. And Cialdini talks about that in the last chapter, how these things just happen automatically. We're all susceptible. We're all very susceptible to many of these techniques. And he sort of just says we have to be more aware of them, how they can help protect us against manipulation. Like we can save ourselves a lot of money, right, by being more aware. Like you were saying earlier, Kyle, we don't have to buy everything that looks really scarce. So I thought this was a good chapter to sum up the 6 principles and how they can really kind of affect us deeply. Any more things to add? I think we covered most of the book at this point.
Yeah. I think what a fun discussion. I'm excited to have our next one in maybe about a month with Doug's choice of book. what's the name of it again?
The Anglo-American Establishment.
Sick.
Yeah. It's
Sick.
gonna be wild. It's gonna be a wild read. You boys are taking you down the rabbit hole.
Oh my god! And then Scott, you'll have the book after that. You haven't decided.
Teaser for next time?
But
Can I give a teaser for next time?
Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah. So basically, what this book is, like I feel like in modern day discussions about geopolitics and politics, a lot of people like just assume that history is something that falls out of the sky, and it's not like a continuum of people making decisions and conspiring. That word has a negative connotation now thanks to the CIA, but that's besides the point. But conspiring towards acquiring resources geopolitically, whether that's the English Empire, moving into Africa, and sort of the model of resource acquisition and like empire building. That's kind of what the book is about. Carol Quigley, who wrote it, was a professor. He was a military historian, and he wrote a book about sort of like the
is it he?
Carol Quigley. Yeah, he was Bill Clinton's mentor too.
It's so sexist, Scott.
Yeah. 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 How did he get the name Carol? That is an interesting question.
I like unisex names. I think they're fun.
Yeah, it is cool when girls have unisex names. I appreciate it.
Plan on giving our child a male name if it's a girl and a girl name if it's a boy.
You're gonna name them Douglas? That's crazy. I can't believe it.
What's that song, Doug?
I saw that.
Susie, Sue, a boy named Sue.
Boy named Sue. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Scott, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, this is more of a side note. I saw a really interesting post on X from Naval, and he, because I was just thinking about what book I'm going to pick after Doug's book, and Naval's line is, instead of asking what books you should read, ask what ideas you should understand.
Have you ever read it, the almanac? He didn't write it, but some.
No, I haven't. No.
It's okay. It's good. Yeah, it's.
That's a good point, Scott. I'm excited to then
Something
figure
to
out what
think about, right?
Yeah. What are you gonna pick?
Maybe Rene Girard.
Dude, if you pick Rene Girard, I'm in. Well, I'm in no matter what. No matter what you pick. You want to pick? I don't know.
Yeah, I have a few books on my list that I think will be really fun to read with you guys. So I'll let you know. But we have a little ways to go.
Awesome.
By the way, I'm so excited. I love doing this with you guys. Like, this is the most fun for me. Yeah.
By the way, have you guys read any of Ayn Rand yet?
Nope, I never read her.
No.
Personally.
Any interest?
Yeah.
If you pick it.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you pick it. Let's wrap up and
Have a life outside of it.
get life. And
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I love these discussions with you guys. I feel like we can go for hours on some of these individual topics. That's why picking books based on like ideas is probably pretty smart. So we can just like really dive into a particular idea together.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'll see you guys next time.
All right.
Bye,
See you.
guys.
Have a good day.
Too.
Thank you for listening to How You Level Up. If you're enjoying the show, subscribe and give a 5-star rating. There are new episodes each month asking questions about timeless communication lessons. Language is a medium for sharing, and the knowledge unpacked here can be applied to anyone, anywhere, facing any challenge. If there's a question or topic you'd like me to dive into next, send a note to any of my connected social media accounts. This is all about how you level up.